They spotted her in the hallway, quiet, worn-out sneakers, phone tucked away. Just another face in Oak Hollow High. But to Trent, Zane, and Kyle, she was an easy target. They laughed when she tripped, pushed her by the lockers, made her eat handfuls of dirt. "Here, enjoy," they sneered. And she did. She swallowed every humiliating mouthful without a word. What they didn't know is that she'd spent years in a hidden dojo, before dawn, before school, for 7 relentless years. Like Sarah Mitchell from California, who learned Brazilian jiu-jitsu in her grandfather's dojo and fought off her tormentors with skill and calm. Or Maya, who sat silent in class until racist slaps triggered a deadly unleash of precise martial arts mastery. These are more than stories. They're proof. So when Trent's fist hit the dirt, he didn't just bruise her pride. He awakened something neither he nor his friends could control. Because that dirt was the least dangerous thing she'd ever swallowed. Quick cut to black. But what made her snap? And how far would she go to protect herself? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you fight for justice and you think the Bullies has no rights to humiliate the girl, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But if you think they have every rights to humiliate her without cause, comment your thoughts below. And don't forget to share the video to those who also fights for justice. I didn't come to Oak Hollow for a fresh start. Not really. I came because my mom, well, the woman who finally adopted me after 7 different placements, said this town was quiet. Said maybe the quiet would help me forget what I'd been through. But the thing is, silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it just means people whisper their cruelty instead of shouting it. I remember the first time I walked through the front gates of Oak Hollow High. The sun was too bright, like it was trying too hard to pretend everything was normal. The lawn was too green, the hallways too clean, like someone had taken a mop to the truth. But even before I stepped foot inside, I felt it. The way they looked at me, like I didn't belong, like I was dirt on their sneakers. Trent, Zane, and Kyle, they didn't need to say anything. The way they stood, relaxed, smug, with that practiced confidence kids only get when they've never had to fight for anything. That said enough. Their families practically built this town, owned the hardware stores, the dealerships, the church funds. They didn't need to be liked. They were owed respect. Entitlement like that, it sticks to the walls. And me? I was just the girl who showed up in a dented car with out-of-state plates. The girl with the thrift store hoodie and scars she never explained. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't just some poor girl with baggage. I was here for answers. See, what nobody knew, not my teachers, not even my mom, was that I didn't come to Oak Hollow by accident. I came here looking for someone who hurt me, before I even knew what hurt meant. And every step I took in those squeaky school hallways brought me closer. But before I could find the truth, they found me. It started behind the gym. There weren't any cameras, no teachers around, just the back wall, red brick and graffiti scars, and the echo of fists hitting lockers. They cornered me, laughed. One of them pushed me. I hit the wall. They were smart enough not to leave marks. But they left something worse. They left the message, "You don't belong here." I could have fought back. I could have ended it right there. But I didn't. Because I needed time. Because I needed to see who else was watching. Because if I fought now, I'd never get close to what I came for. So I let it happen. And that's when things got strange. 2 days later, a man in a dark blue sedan parked outside the school. Didn't look like a parent. Didn't talk to the front office. He sat there for hours. Then someone said he spoke to Principal Carver after school. Quietly. Behind closed doors. 3 days after that, Kyle didn't show up to football practice. 4 days later, I found something tucked inside my locker. A note. No name. Just one sentence. They know who you are. I read it over and over until the ink blurred. Who knew? And what did they know? That I wasn't just some scared girl? That behind the quiet and the shadows? I was trained? That every night for 7 years I learned how to endure pain without flinching, how to breathe through fear, how to break a man's wrist in 2 moves. The question started echoing in my head, not just who knew, but why now? Why Oak Hollow? Why me? And what really happened behind that gym wall that brought the FBI to a sleepy little town like this? I remember the day we moved into that tiny apartment by the edge of town. I sat on the sagging couch, the brown vinyl creaking under me. My mom, Tanya, barely held it together. Her uniform stained from 2 jobs, nurse at Sunrise Clinic, janitor at Oak Hollow Elementary. I could feel her exhaustion in every crease of her forehead. I wanted to protect her, but I was 11, and I had nothing left to give. In that apartment, silence wasn't solace. It was a cold reminder. We didn't belong. Our walls were thin. I could hear traffic on Main Street, hear the scrape of tires and distant voices. At night, I lay awake imagining footsteps outside our door. Whether real or not, I didn't know. But the fear was real. School days were the same. I wore hand-me-downs, hoodie fronts faded, hems unraveling. I kept my head down, walked to the back of the cafeteria and ate alone. But I watched. I saw which tables stayed quiet, whose laughter felt safe, and whose eyes whispered lies. One day, I noticed Trent leaning into Zane and Kyle, shoulders slumped. I heard them call me Ninja Turtle. Just a whisper, but loaded. I felt betrayal, because I thought I was invisible. And yet, they saw me. Every night, back at our apartment, I returned to my other world. The dojo. A small space behind a shuttered warehouse, flat concrete walls and 1 light bulb swinging overhead. I remember the sound of my breath, the dull slap of canvas mats, the rigid tone of my instructor. Again, until it's muscle. I tied my shoelaces in that martial arts knot I learned at 7. My knuckles were scarred. No, not from school. From relentless repetition. From learning discipline. From learning not to break under pressure. When I blinked, I saw Tanya watching from the doorway. Her eyes tired but proud. Pride I didn't feel I deserved. But I kept going. And the boys didn't know any of that. They didn't know the 5 a.m. runs, the bruised ribs from partner drills, the cold sweat when the instructor called me sharp. They saw hoodie, thrift store tag. They saw easy prey. But as they laughed, I was already planning. Because I knew endurance, I knew breath control. I learned every type of offensive and defensive move. I built muscles to hold weight, wills to outlast fear. They cornered me behind the gym one afternoon, no cameras, just red brick walls, concrete dust, and the dull thud of footsteps echoing. They shoved me, tore my hoodie, exposed my bruises from training, tore my backpack too. I smelled the gym, sweat, rubber, stale chalk. That smell used to comfort me. Now it choked me. They forced me onto my knees, dirt in my hair. Terrified, I froze. But inside, I felt muscles ready. They laughed when I didn't fight back, shouldered aside and left me cold. And I swallowed it all. Pain, humiliation. But also, resolve. Because I wasn't that scared girl anymore. I was someone they underestimated. And once they underestimated me, they made a mistake. I walked home that night. Hoodie shredded, sneakers caked in dirt. The streetlights glittered against broken glass on the sidewalk. My legs trembled, not from fear, but from the promise I'd made to myself. I wouldn't break. Not again. Next morning, the apartment smelled like bleach. Mom scrubbed floors. I sat with her on that cracked linoleum, wanting to tell her everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. I stared at her tired hands. She'd come so far to give me a chance. I couldn't shatter that. Instead, I did something else. I trained harder. 2 routines a day. At school, I moved carefully. Listened to locker doors, watched corridors. I started mapping their schedules, their weaknesses. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was building insurance. But fate doesn't wait. A flimsy note slipped into my locker read, They know who you are. Under the fluorescent lights, I touched it and felt my pulse speed up. Who they were, what they knew. Why now? Because every line of that note carried more weight than any punch. And that's when I realized the dojo was my haven, but Oak Hollow was my proving ground, and something deeper was stirring in this town. I never thought silence could scream, but that day behind the gym, silence was louder than a gunshot. It was after 7th period, sky turning that tired shade of blue before sunset, shadows stretching longer than they should have. Most kids were already heading home, laughing in groups, backpacks bouncing, sneakers slapping pavement. But I walked slower. I knew what was coming. Somewhere deep inside I knew. My gut had been tight all day, like my body felt it before my mind caught up. Locker slams sounded sharper. Footsteps behind me, too close, too purposeful. I'd seen the looks, Trent whispering, Zane smirking, Kyle adjusting his phone camera like he was rehearsing something. Still, I didn't run. I took the long way round the gym, past the vending machines and the rusty chain-link fence with the no trespassing sign half ripped. That path was always quiet. No teachers, no eyes, and that's where they waited. It was the way they moved. Not like boys playing a joke, but like predators who'd been planning a kill. They boxed me in fast, not a word, not a warning. Trent was the first to shove me. My back hit the wall so hard my teeth rattled. My backpack slid off my shoulder and hit the ground. Zane kicked it open like he was looking for something. Books spilled out. My lunchbox cracked. Kyle laughed as he picked up the necklace I kept hidden under my hoodie. My dad's old dog tag from when he served overseas. That necklace. It was all I had left of him. I never told anyone. Never showed it. Somehow they knew. Kyle dangled it in front of me, grinning, then tossed it like trash. And I watched it slip down a storm drain. Gone. That's when the mocking started. "Do your little ninja moves now," one of them said. They thought it was funny. Zane had his phone out, recording. Of course he was. He always did everything for views. Then, they pushed me to the ground. My cheek scraped concrete. Dirt filled my mouth. I felt their shoes near my ribs, like they wanted to test how far they could push before I cracked. One of them said I should eat the dirt. Another kicked my books. I could hear them laughing, voices echoing off the wall like a crowd, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt cold. Not like I was shivering, more like my soul backed away from my body, watched it from a distance. My knuckles dug into the pavement and all I could see were my fingers. Scarred, tight, still strong. Then it happened. Something snapped. Not loud, not violent, just quiet and final, like a door closing. I stood up, slowly. I wiped the blood from my mouth with the back of my sleeve. My vision narrowed, my breath steadied. No fear, no rage, just stillness. They laughed when I rose, but they didn't laugh long, because I moved, not wild, not like someone fighting to survive. I moved like I knew what I was doing. Every motion tight, sharp, efficient. I didn't speak. I didn't give them a warning. Trent lunged first. Big mistake. I stepped aside, grabbed his arm, twisted it, fast, and drove my knee into his stomach. His breath left his body like a balloon popped under pressure. He crumpled. Zane tried to grab me from behind. I dropped low, hooked his leg, twisted his shoulder. I felt it pop. A wet, sick sound. He screamed, dropped the phone. I turned to Kyle. He didn't move, just stood there, face pale, eyes wide like he'd seen a ghost. Then he bolted, ran like the devil himself was on his heels. And I stood there, chest rising slow, heart calm, blood on my knuckles, Trent groaning on the ground, Zane cradling his arm, and just like that, it was over. No one said a word. No one ever would. The next day, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Teachers looked away. Kids avoided my eyes. The video? Gone. vanished like it never existed. Zane's TikTok account? Wiped clean, like someone made it disappear. I knew something was off. I walked the halls and felt eyes on me, not in fear, in confusion, in curiosity, like folks were trying to solve a puzzle they didn't even have all the pieces for. But the worst part was coming home. Because that night my mom saw the bruises, the scrape on my face. She didn't ask questions, not at first. She just stared at me like she was trying to figure out what kind of war her daughter had walked through. I told her I slipped. She didn't believe it. She didn't press me either. But something shifted in her. I saw it. Like she was scared, not of the world, but of what I might be capable of when pushed too far. 2 days later, a man came by the school. Didn't wear a badge on his chest, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew what he was, FBI, Agent Doyle, and he wasn't there for Trent or Zane or Kyle. He asked for me, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just about a fight. It was about something much bigger, something buried deep in this town, something those boys accidentally triggered. And me? I was right in the middle of it. I still remember the sound of my own footsteps echoing down that empty alley behind the gym, the way my breath came out shallow, like it didn't want to be heard. That silence I told you about, it never left me. Even after it was all over, even after the screaming stopped and the blood dried. Silence followed me home. Except, I never made it home. Not that night. Not after what happened. They found Trent first. He was sprawled out near the brick wall with blood in his hair, moaning like he'd been hit by a truck. His eyes wouldn't stay open, kept rolling back. Said he didn't remember what happened. At least that's what they claimed he said. Funny how folks forget everything once the story don't go their way. Security was the first to show up. Old Mr. Freeman, limping out with his flashlight shaking in his hand, radio crackling nonsense. He said he didn't see anything, said there was no sign of a fight. But how do you explain a boy laid out like roadkill, a busted phone on the ground, and another kid screaming with his arm bent the wrong way? And me? I was gone. Like smoke. Like a ghost. Mama waited up for me. Lord knows she did. Left the porch light on. Dinner cold on the stove. She even left my bedroom door cracked, like she still thought I'd walk in quiet and slip under the covers without a word. But I never came. By midnight, she'd called everybody she could think of. By 2 a.m., she was at the police station filing a missing persons report with trembling hands and last night's headscarf still clinging to her head. They didn't take her seriously. Not at first. You know how it goes. Black girl don't come home? They say she probably ran away. They act like we just wander off whenever we feel like it. But my mama wasn't having it. She told them I don't miss curfew. I don't skip school. I don't run. Not after everything we'd been through. But the cops dragged their feet. Took them 12 hours just to start looking. And by then, the story had already started spreading like wildfire. Black teen vanishes after assault rumors at Oak Hollow High. That's what the headline said. Local news picked it up, then regional, then national. My face, just a school photo of me with my hair pulled back and a tired smile, plastered across every screen like I was a criminal or a corpse. Folks in town started whispering. Some said I was attacked. Others said I did the attacking. The boys? They were quick with their version. Said I snapped, said I went wild and beat him for no reason. Said I was always weird, always angry, always different. They left out the part where they cornered me, left out the video, left out what they did with my daddy's dog tag. But lies don't hold forever, especially not when truth got bones. And mine were bruised, not broken. Their story didn't match the medical records. See, Zane's arm? Dislocated backward, a move that requires precision, not panic. Trent's injuries? A single sharp concussion, not from wild punches but a targeted strike to the head. And the surveillance cameras? Now that was the part that made everybody nervous. Footage from the hallway leading to the back of the gym was incomplete. 2 full minutes missing, timestamps gone, like someone had clipped it out on purpose. A school janitor mentioned seeing someone pull a hard drive from the system just before the incident. Said it was protocol. But who pulls a security drive in the middle of a school day? That's when he showed up. Agent Marcus Doyle. Federal badge, quiet eyes, suit that didn't quite fit right. Said he was following up on a disappearance, but I could tell he wasn't just any agent. He wasn't there by chance. He knew something. Knew me. He didn't act like the local cops. Didn't ask about my grades or my attitude. He asked about patterns, about my past, about places I couldn't remember but felt connected to somehow. Said this wasn't the first time my name crossed his desk. I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. But something in his voice made my skin crawl. Not from fear, from recognition. Like he knew parts of me even I didn't. See, growing up, I'd always been told we came from nowhere. Small town, broken home, struggle baked into our bones. But Doyle? He talked like my family had roots deeper than I ever knew. Military, intelligence, secrets. He started digging, pulled my dad's service records, only to find them sealed. Pulled up school files, redacted. Even my birth certificate had blank spaces. It didn't make sense. Why would a missing girl from a poor black neighborhood pull a federal agent with a background in counterintelligence? Why was my name tagged in databases meant for threats, not victims? And why was my daddy's dog tag laced with a microchip? That dog tag. The one Kyle tossed down the drain like it was trash. Turns out it wasn't just sentimental. It was tracking something, or someone. Agent Doyle recovered it from the school's plumbing system 2 days later. How he knew where to look, I still don't know. But that dog tag told a story that went back years, maybe even decades. And me? I wasn't just a bullied girl. I was a legacy of something forgotten, something buried, something they tried to erase. All this was unraveling while I was still gone. But I wasn't lost. I was hiding. I'd made my way to the edge of town that night, found shelter where no one would think to look, an abandoned greenhouse behind the old Foster farm, half covered in ivy and grief. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep. I sat there with dirt under my nails and blood dried on my knuckles, staring at the horizon like it might tell me who I really was. I didn't feel like a kid anymore. I didn't feel human. I felt like a weapon someone forgot to warn the world about. And that's the part no one ever tells you. When you're pushed too far, when they take everything, your peace, your dignity, your name, what's left ain't weakness. It's fire. Quiet, controlled, burning. They thought they broke me, but all they did was peel back the surface and show me who I really was. And when I stood up from that greenhouse floor the next morning, hair matted, eyes bloodshot, body aching from the cold, I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. You ever feel like your whole life was a lie? But it was a lie told out of love? Like somebody wrapped you up in silence and called it protection? That's what it felt like when the truth finally cracked open. Like standing in the middle of your own reflection and realizing it was never really you staring back. Just pieces, fragments, shadow and light pretending to be a whole person. I used to think I was just a girl. A regular girl with tight curls and stubborn scars. A girl who kept her head down, stayed out of trouble, and tried to survive a world that never wanted her to feel safe. But I wasn't just that girl. And what I learned, what Agent Doyle uncovered, changed everything. It started with my mother, or the woman I thought was my mother. When Doyle sat down with her, quiet and calm like he always was, he didn't ask her about the night I went missing. He asked her about the year I came home with a new name, new wounds, and no memory of what came before. Turns out, I was adopted. Not from an agency, not through the system. No, I was taken in by a man the world forgot. Isaiah Morrow, a former Black Ops instructor who disappeared from public record the same year he buried his best friend in a closed casket funeral. They said Isaiah was dangerous, but I never saw danger in him. All I saw was discipline, stillness, That quiet kind of strength that don't need to prove itself. The kind you feel in a room before you ever hear it speak. He raised me from the time I was 8. I remember the weight of his boots on the porch, the way he cleaned his tools like they were sacred. I remember how he'd kneel in front of me with a small wooden stick and say, "Balance isn't just for the body, it's for the soul." But I never knew who he really was. Not until after he died. His death never sat right with me. The coroner said heart failure, but he was only 53. No medical history, no warning, just gone. And a week after the funeral, our house was broken into. Nothing stolen, nothing trashed, just files missing. The drawers were still open when I got home, and one name had been carved into the edge of the desk like it was left there on purpose. Project Sparrow. I didn't know what it meant. But when Doyle pulled up my sealed file, that's what he found at the top. A government-level clearance tag. No details, no dates. Just a code name and a string of encrypted entries going back to the year before Isaiah took me in. And here's where it gets dark. The place I thought was just a summer program for troubled girls. It wasn't no summer camp. It was a private martial arts facility built on old military grounds, funded by a foundation with no name, no logo, no public records. Girls from foster homes, juvenile halls, runaway shelters. They all ended up there. Only a few came out. The training was brutal. Not just physical, psychological. We were blindfolded, isolated, stripped of identity. Every move was watched, every failure recorded. I remember one session, I was maybe 9, trembling in front of a wooden board I couldn't even see. And I'll never forget the instructor's voice behind me, low, steady, cold as steel. You fight so you never have to fight, but when you must, you end it. And I did. I broke that board like it was bone, like it meant survival, like my life depended on it. It all started to make sense. Why I didn't flinch when those boys came at me. Why my body reacted before I even knew what was happening. Why Trent ended up with a concussion, and Kyle with a dislocated arm, and me vanished like smoke in the wind. That moment in the alley, it wasn't just defense. It might have been a test, and someone higher up had been watching. See, when Doyle dug deeper, he found something buried in Isaiah's old records. Fragments of communication between a private security firm and a defunct government agency. They referenced contingency assets, field scenarios, and adolescent field operatives. And one name appeared 3 times. Mine. Which means this wasn't my first disappearance. There were 2 others. One in Arizona when I was 11. Another in Georgia, age 13. Both times I'd been recovered under mysterious circumstances. And both times the official report was sealed within 24 hours. I didn't remember those years. Not fully. Just flashes. Like a hand on my shoulder. A voice in my ear. The sound of water dripping in a concrete room. Doyle said someone had been testing me for years, watching how I handled pressure, fear, violence. And Oak Hollow High, that may have been the final piece. A controlled chaos, a trigger scenario. Except I wasn't supposed to disappear. Not this time. I was supposed to be recruited. I don't know what they were planning to use me for. I don't know how many girls were like me, scattered across the country with memories wiped clean and stories buried under fake names and forged transcripts. But I do know this. I was never just a victim. I was made, shaped by a system that pretended to care while preparing me for war. Not a war overseas. A war right here. In schools, in cities, in mines. You ever wonder why some girls walk through fire and don't even blink? It's not always strength. Sometimes it's programming. Sometimes it's pain they were taught to carry like armor. But I ain't armor no more. I'm awake. And now that I know the truth, now that I remember who I am and what they tried to turn me into, I got one thing left to do. I walked back into that station like I was walking into my past. Not with fear, not with anger, with a kind of stillness that only comes after you've stared your own ghost in the mirror and didn't blink. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like a warning. The linoleum floor smelled like bleach and old lies. I could hear the low murmur of radios in the background, cops talking soft into receivers, boots scuffing against worn tile. And beneath it all, this silence, not empty, but waiting. I hadn't been in that building since the night I vanished. Since the night they looked at me like a criminal when all I'd done was survive. But this time, I wasn't running. I was coming back to finish what I never chose to start. I had his phone, Trent's burnt orange case, cracked on the side, locked with a fingerprint that wasn't mine. But I'd learned how to get past that kind of lock years ago. And deep in the phone's memory, past the Snapchats, the texts full of cruelty masked as jokes, the hidden folder disguised as homework, I found it. The video, the one they thought they deleted. It showed the truth. Not just what they did to me, but what they'd done to others. Girls, younger than me, scared, silenced. Some of them had tried to speak, but nobody listened. Or maybe nobody wanted to. Because when boys like that do what they do, the world calls it boys being boys. But when we fight back, suddenly we're the threat. I handed over the phone without saying much. My hand didn't shake, my eyes didn't flinch. Just one sentence. That's all I gave them. They won't hurt anyone again. And I meant it. Not because I trusted the system, but because I had already done what needed to be done. What followed was fast and ugly. The video went public before they could stop it. News vans parked outside the school, reporters chasing parents down in parking lots, girls coming forward, one, then another, then five. And the town? It split clean down the middle. Some called me a hero, said I was brave, that I saved lives. Others called me dangerous, said I was trained, programmed, said I was a weapon, as if they didn't see that I had scars too, as if surviving makes you inhuman. They tried to charge me. Lord knows they tried. But there wasn't enough left to charge. Not when the video showed how it started. Not when the other girls spoke. Not when his own phone turned against him. So they let it go. Case closed. That's what they said anyway. But I saw the way Agent Doyle looked at me. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't say a word. He just slipped the file back into the drawer. But he didn't lock it, didn't seal it with that final stamp. He just left it sitting there, quiet, open, like maybe he wasn't done watching, like maybe they never are. And me? I disappeared again, but not in the way they expected. I didn't run. I chose this time, chose something new, a place where I could finally breathe. Not because it was safe, but because I made it that way. There's this studio on the east side of the city. No signs, no ads, just a red door behind a grocery store and the sound of fists hitting pads behind the walls. I train girls there now, girls who've seen too much too young, girls who carry silence like it's a second skin. They don't ask me what happened to me, and I don't ask them either. All I say is what Isaiah used to tell me. You never start the fight, but you always finish it. And every time I say it, I remember that day in the alley, not with pain, but with purpose. Because that fight, that wasn't just about me. It was about every girl who's ever been told to stay quiet, to sit still, to be nice. Sometimes I wake up sweating, the past clinging to my ribs like smoke. Sometimes I see their faces in crowds, hear their voices in my dreams. But I ain't afraid no more. I know who I am now. Not a weapon, not a victim, something in between, something more. People always want to know what happened after. Did I get revenge? Did I heal? Did I find peace? Truth is, there ain't always a clean ending. Some stories close with a gavel, a verdict, a full circle. Others, they close with silence. A breath, a red door, a girl standing tall, fists wrapped in cloth, eyes focused straight ahead, and a voice in her heart whispering, "Let them come." They say when a storm passes, the air feels lighter, but nobody talks about the silence it leaves behind. That kind of silence don't hum. It aches. It clings to your skin, thick like humidity after rain, reminding you that even when the thunder's gone, the damage is still sitting in the wreckage. That's what it felt like after I left the police station. I walked out of there into a world that had flipped itself inside out. The air felt sharp like it had teeth. People didn't look at me the same anymore. Not out of fear, not even out of pity. It was more like uncertainty, like they didn't know what I was now. Was I a survivor or a warning? Was I the girl who got justice or the one who shattered the rules of how we're supposed to survive? I felt eyes on me in every aisle of the grocery store, every corner of the bus. I wasn't invisible no more, but I sure as hell wasn't seen either. Just observed, studied, and that's its own kind of prison. Back at home, I couldn't sleep right, couldn't eat much either. I kept seeing flashes of it all, the alley, the blood, the silence after it happened. I thought getting justice would mean peace, but what they don't tell you is that even when the truth sets you free, it don't fix what got broken inside you. You still gotta live with the choices you made to survive, and I made mine. One night I was sitting on the floor of my room, lights off, just the glow from the street lamp outside pouring through my window, painting everything this soft orange. I looked around at the photos on the wall, me and Isaiah, me and Mama when I was little, and this one picture of me holding a trophy from that martial arts competition when I was 13. I didn't even want to enter that tournament, but Isaiah said, "You gotta know how to end a fight, baby girl, not start it, end it." And for the first time since everything went down, I cried. Not the loud kind, not the feel sorry for me kind. Just quiet tears, like my soul was finally exhaling after holding its breath too long. The next few days, the world kept spinning like nothing happened, but inside me, a shift had started. I began walking different, not with arrogance, but with intention. I wasn't trying to disappear no more. I was trying to decide who I wanted to be in this world, now that I'd seen what it could do. So I went back to that red door, the one behind the grocery store, the studio Isaiah used to bring me to when I was too angry to speak and too stubborn to cry. It was still there, still smelling like sweat, rubber mats, and old lessons. I stepped inside, and it was like the walls remembered me. Didn't ask questions, didn't need answers, just handed me gloves and let me breathe. That studio became my sanctuary, not just for fighting, for feeling. Every punch I threw wasn't about rage. It was about reclaiming. Every time my knuckles hit the bag, I imagined breaking the silence that tried to swallow me. I imagined the voices of every girl who never got to speak. And slowly, day by day, I stopped being afraid of my own strength. I started teaching, not just techniques, trust. I showed the girls how to protect their bodies, but more than that, how to believe that their bodies were worth protecting. And the way they looked at me, not like I was broken, not like I was dangerous, like I was proof that survival ain't shameful. It's sacred. But even now, late at night, I still wonder, did I do the right thing? Not just in that alley, but in coming back and exposing what I did. 'Cause yeah, justice was served, I guess. The boys got what they deserved. But justice ain't always clean, ain't always kind. Sometimes it's jagged. Sometimes it costs more than it gives. And I still feel the weight of it, every damn day. I kept thinking about Agent Doyle, about how he didn't close that file, about how maybe I was just the start of something bigger. Like maybe they'd been watching girls like me for a long time, testing, studying, preparing, and I couldn't help but ask myself, was I really free? Or was I just the first domino? Was I used? Or did I finally use what they gave me? I don't know all the answers. I'm still figuring it out. But I do know this. When a system fails you, you don't owe it silence. When your voice is all you got, you scream it till the walls shake. You let the world see the bruises, the grit, the fire, because somebody, somewhere, is waiting on your story to give them permission to tell their own. Now I stand at the front of that studio every Thursday, hands wrapped, breath steady, and I say the same thing every time. You never start the fight, but you always finish it. And those girls? They say it back, louder each week, stronger, like they know that even if justice don't come knocking, they'll be ready when it does. Was justice truly served, or was this just the beginning of something deeper? Would you have seen the red flags, or ignored the dirt? Let us know in the comments below. And if you thought this was wild, wait till you hear what happened in Chicago, where a missing janitor's locker revealed a 17-year-old girl's secret life as a vigilante spy. Subscribe for more real-life inspired mysteries and justice stories. New videos every week.